The parameters for my resistance are quite well defined, which is we talk, we argue, we push, and then it becomes physical, right? Like if we move beyond the boundaries of civil discourse, we know what the next step is. If the man is offensive enough and crazy enough, the reaction becomes physical right away, or at least the threat is there. And when men are talking to each other in any serious manner, that underlying threat of physicality is always there, especially if it's a real conversation, and keeps the thing civilized to some degree. You know, if you're talking to a man who wouldn't fight with you under any circumstances whatsoever, then you're talking to someone to whom you have absolutely no respect.
Yellow. The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them. Miyamoto Musashi. Why would Miyamoto Musashi say such a thing? To diligently train in hopes you never have to use the power you've attained through that process. Does that not seem ironic? Well, let's deconstruct this through the filter of philosophy. Understanding it as the overarching principle of life that it is, we've all had people in our lives who have used this. Maybe it was for money, maybe it was some kind of emotional endeavor, and sure, I believe to a large extent we exist to serve each other, thus innately use each other. But when does that use become abuse? When is a line crossed? Thank you for joining me as we uncover a philosophy for life. Now consider this. A man who in the eyes of a woman is very high value, whether it be the way he carries himself, wealth, looks, fame, for some reason, he is very desirable, and the result, because he has so much selection, women are willing to compromise their boundaries to compete for his attention, but as they let go of their boundaries, the man attains what he wants for cheaper, which increases the likelihood that he'll abuse or take for granted each individual woman. You know, why should he invest so much when he can get what he wants for so little? Unless he's experiencing scarcity, he does not need to add to his offer because he can always walk away, then find someone who will take it. You can also see this in the friend-zoned male, where a man who has little standard for the type of relationship he wishes for, and even if he does, lacks the courage to pursue it, or walk away from it if he doesn't get it. Thus, the lack of boundary has women easily step past a line, thus take him for granted or use him. Maybe as a space to drop emotional baggage, maybe it's for money or resources, or maybe to just validate through the man's attention. Whatever the case is, because he is not willing to end what does not meet his needs, he sacrifices his line, thus allows himself to be crossed, which in end result has him questioning his self-worth altogether. Now that we have a feel for this philosophy, let's see the same thing in dominance behavior or bullying. Georges St. Pierre said something very interesting in regards to his childhood bullying and why it stopped. He learned martial arts, which taught him to carry himself in a more dominant and confident manner. But now the question becomes, why did that stop the abuse he received? It communicated that sure, I will choose to resolve conflict as calmly and as peacefully as possible, but if you cross past a certain line, I will push back. This does not mean he would win every altercation. Instead, it meant that regardless of what happens, if that line is crossed, he will do everything in his power to push back and stop it. From there, why would the bully risk a broken nose, a missing eye or teeth? Maybe worse. Why would the bully risk long-term damage for a fleeting sense of ego? For a fleeting sense of validation, self-preservation will typically outweigh ego from that point. Thus the result, a sense of respect is established. The bully respects that his ego is not worth crossing your line. What's weirder though, often with that established mutual respect, we prefer civilized discussion. If we seek something from that person, there has to be an easier way to compromise for what we want. There has to be a line of compromise. Thus, civilized talking is preferred to achieve that. Now, with civilized discussion, you can now attain a sense of understanding which may lead to a deeper bond, a mutual transaction of value between the two, which may strengthen a sense of trust or friendship between the two. Isn't that strange? But that is what respect helps you achieve. Civil discourse. Most normal human beings do not commit crime because they feel the repercussions of doing so. Thus, they respect societal backlash or respect the intervention of law enforcement, even though the majority of violent crimes go unsolved. Thus, we find law enforcement is not perfect. Nothing is perfect, but its presence acts as a tool deterring people from harming others in the first place. Even though, again, not all, nothing is perfect. It just helps attain a better average of civility, thus peace. This is the overarching philosophy of life. It's not about harming another person. It's understanding that we ourselves are not perfect, that we have crossed lines ourselves sometimes without even realizing it. When we make that realization, we also realize that there are people with that same darkness but much bigger. Till that end, it is much better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener at war. For the gardener is helpless to the beasts before him, whilst the warrior in his preparation for beasts will more likely be able to harvest his crops in peace. This is what Miyamoto Musashi means when he says, the ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them. If you'd like more from me, please subscribe. It's definitely great for the channel. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. It's good karma. And until next time, peace.